So, May 2025, Ron Ramos is going to talk to us about ground up construction. I've known Ron for the last 2 to 3 years. Um, we have great conversations. He knows so much about building. He toured me all over North County. He basically showed me a physical resume, which was every project he's built in San Marcos. And I don't think we hit every project. There wasn't even time in a whole day. San Marcos Vista, Carlsbad, Oceanside. He's done some projects in Orange County, which we didn't even get to. He is the CEO of New Green Development Advisors, and he advises people on how to do development because that's what he's done for his career. He's built a lot of full cycle communities where people have put money in. They started with dirt, now the communities are built, and they're um, either the passive investor who started gets bought out when you refinance the loan, or they stay in and continue to get a very nice return on that. One of Ron's specialties is workforce housing, which is, the first kind of housing people get into when they move out of their mom's basement, right? And he's also done many higher end projects. There's a great 17 townhouse project he built. I think it's 2 or 3 streets from the beach in Carlsbad. Hopefully, he'll give us a nice picture of that. Ron started out in marketing at SDSU, and that's where he got his college degree. And he is a licensed contractor, and he has many accolades and awards, worked for numerous companies throughout his career. And Ron is our speaker for tonight. So I'm going to stop my share, Ron, and let you do your share.
All right.
There you are. Welcome, Ron.
Um, I'm not sure I know how to do this, but I'll do my very best. You know, it's really kind of interesting. I always like to start out with a little incantation to myself because I feel a little bit uh, uh, a lack of control of the situation that I'm in right now, which is I'm not in the presence of the people that I'm talking to. So it's so that incantation goes something like this. It's not the day you have to manage, but the moment. And it's not the dragon you have to slay, but the fear. And it's not the path you have to know, but the destination. And the uh, interesting part of our business, if we look back on it, it's a a business that requires all of us to think all the time about what we're doing and where we're going, and it's kind of a relief to know that none of us really know how far we're going to get, but I've been doing this now since gosh, it's hard to say, 1969. And I still don't know what the final opportunity is going to be, but I'll share some things with you. Um, the Right now I I had 80 employees at one time, and I've had as many as 13 projects under construction at one time. And at this time of my life, I don't really want to live my life like that anymore. So I've put together a practice, if you might want to call it, called New Green Development Advisors. And just simply stated, the purpose of uh, New Green Development Advisors is I specialize in real estate development, coaching, planning, pre-construction, project construction management, consulting, partnering clients with exceptional general contractors, and inviting and advising corporate and individual property owners and religious institutions, nonprofit and for-profit organizations. Now, I've read that sentence, so I'll do my best to read this next sentence and try to give you an idea of what I'm up to. New Green Development Advisors, their developers and builders look for creative and effective solutions to their real estate projects and for learning. all brought to bear in an environment where what is valued is not just the ability to predict results with forecasts and plans, but also the ability to generate results for project challenges, which were not going to happen otherwise. And so, over the top of New Green Development Advisors, I've put together a mastermind group called American Developers Guild. Right now, I think we had 10 people attend the last one last Thursday. And we basically do two things. This is to build and sell or build and hold single family and multifamily houses on properties on vacant lots. Um, one time I was at a dinner and the speaker got up and he told a joke. He says, he said, there's five stages to the real estate development business, and the first one is enthusiasm. Look at that piece of ground. Look at what, boy, I'll tell you, there's no question about it. And after a while, he gets into the project, and pretty soon issues start showing up, and he gets concerned. The next stage is it goes into panic. The lender's beating on the door. The fourth stage is find the guilty, and the fifth stage is punish the innocent. And of course, the whole room breaks out laughing because everybody knows that somewhat this is true. Like all humor, there's a certain amount of truth that makes it funny. Um, and I don't know the level of experience of most of the people that are here tonight, although I'm sure that many of you are well experienced. But one day I came up with the definition of ground up real estate development, and simply the definition is turning land into cash. And we're going to dive into the world of real estate investment with a focus on some new opportunities that I've been involved with in the last 3 or 4 years. And I'll talk tonight a little bit about a fully entitled project that we have in Apache Junction, Arizona. And we'll look at a property called Ocean 17 that I put together with uh, a development company in San Marcos. Um, I was actually retired after 2000. From 2000 to 2010, I really bored myself to death, and I decided I'd work on a student housing building at San Diego State. And while I was working on the building, I was having a conversation with the general contractor that I'd hired. I think most of you or some of you might know it. It's a company called R&R Construction, really a great mid-level construction company, been in business 35 years, really good quality people, very experienced, long-term employment with everybody there. And I was talking to the owner and I told him, I said, I really don't understand why anybody would want to be a general contractor, because you spend your life trying to get paid while the developer takes off, hopefully, with the sweetness of the project.
Mm.
And so I made a proposal to him. I said, if you want to, I'll show you the difference between being in the accounts receivables business and being in the accounts payables business. And again, that's my definition of the distinction between being a general contractor and being a developer. So tonight, I don't know very many of the people that are on tonight, but if I'm going to show you a proposal of a project that I have, and with one of my developers, and the proposal I'm making to all of you out there is that if this type of financial adventure sparks your interest, we'd love to hear from you, and just say yes, and if not, say no. And my goal tonight, though, is to kind of enlighten you to help you see it as it is, that the real estate development business is, in fact, a game to be played with relish. But sometimes trying to explain it to people is a little bit difficult. It's kind of like two fish swimming around in the water, and one is trying to explain to the other guy what water is. And this cartoon, of course, is the result of that.
Oh,
Uh,
Ron, you have to share your screen. Oh, there's the fish. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense.
so that's what I was talking about. Okay, so let's go on. So, but again, let Janice know if it's a yes, and just tell her yes, this feels like it's the right investment type of fit for you, or that you're eager to learn, and you guys can schedule the next steps. Anyway, so let's go ahead from here. Um, uh, this is a property that in 2019 we closed escrow on this piece of property in Carlsbad Village. I don't know if any of you have been around this town for very long, but that used to be the Culligan Water store on that location, and the project was obviously it was well located, fabulous piece of property, but definitely had lots of challenges to it. And in 2019, when we closed escrow, we still had plans to do and engineering to do, and the developer uh, client of mine was challenged pretty heavily during that period of time, putting all the pieces together, including the going from the conditional use permit to the approved set of plans. And of course, COVID hit,
Wow.
and that pulled the rug out from the project for some time. But then uh, we went into the marketplace, and we thought we were going to get about $680 a square foot for the property. You can see the amount of analysis that just to look at the project overview, every floor plan was a little bit different. They were all in 2,100 square foot flat range, and we thought we'd be lucky. I think if you look at this picture right here, you get an idea of what the location is. This was done by Morrison. The but the quality of the project, obviously, what was happening in the village at the time was that there were other projects proposed. They're pretty high end, but of course, the thing that made the project so worthwhile was the the location. We
Mhm.
You can see Buena Vista Lagoon and the whole area of the Carlsbad Village right here. Um, Good things happen along the way. The community was I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with the city of Carlsbad, but we affectionately refer to it as the People's Republic of Carlsbad. They weren't easy to work with, and the basic problem is that the entire staff turns over about every 8 months. I think it's quite an experience to try to get anything, try to come up with the approvals. But anyway, we went through and did the analytics on the project, continued to. Back then, we were using an analytical tool called TractPy. I don't know if any of you have heard about it or not, but we used that, and we figured that the sales revenue would be 30,484,000 for the overall project. Well, by the time we got through the term of the project and got it completed and started delivering, we were about 2 years late on the schedule, but we sold it out for 39,500,000 just because inflation made heroes out of all of us. It was quite an experience. Um, One of the things that I like to point out is that the equity participation that took place on that, um, the first column on the right is the capital that was invested by friends and family of the development of the developer, and the other 3,837,000 was invested by a Canadian investment company. And if you go down a little bit further, you can see what the rate of return was on the principal and what the equity multiple was as a result of the project. Now, it's wonderful to have really great stories, but I always like to remind people that that this business is really not a this business is really a singles and doubles business. And you every once in a while you hit a foul ball so you can stay at the plate, but every now and then you hit a home run. This fortunately happened to be one, and we're grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
even with everything that happened with COVID, it still ended up being a home run and you got finished. And that's a great rate of return.
Well, I
No
mean,
complaints.
we even had to go through the enormously difficult process of changing limited partners midstream because when things look like they're going bad or they're liable to get worse, sometimes capital gets excuse me, sometimes capital gets nervous, and so we even had to do that. Um, so Contrary to 2,100 square foot, $2 million flats in Carlsbad, we also went to Arizona and acquired. It's really remarkable. I'm sure most of you that are on tonight have been to Arizona, and you know that you drive down these big wide boulevards, and there's just lots of vacant properties. On every block almost, there is a vacant lot. And in these 2 acre and 1.5 acre parcels of ground seem to all be zoned R3. It's just astonishing. And Phoenix also has an interesting, I mean, almost enlightened uh, regulatory process over there. Once you get your construction plans approved, and you buy another lot somewhere else, you can use the approved plans from one lot to another without having to go back through plan check. I mean, it's astonishing that 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 every place doesn't do that. But
Well, that is amazing compared to California. So
yeah,
that's why we
well,
like it.
I know I can't I couldn't believe it the first time we did it. So these are duplexes, 841 square foot duplexes over and under. And oh, by the way, in the middle here is myself on the left, and the developer, my developer uh, uh, protege, Kyle DeQuilletz, who uh, is in the stone and tile business as a distributor, and he wanted to be a developer. And so this is his, it's really amazing to say, but this is his first project, and it's 34 units. I I kind of have uh, my personal experience is that the first property that I bought in San Marcos in 1974 was 154 acres on the corner of Mission and Bennett. The the developer that I was working for at the time had a heart attack, and he told me that he wanted to sell the business. And so I think I was 28 or 29 years old at the time, and I told him I would buy it, and I managed to put the capital together, and we bought the property, and my first start was 72 units. So I obviously this guy could start 34 units rather easily. And just to give you another look at the actual construction, this picture was taken, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But again, you see the duplex configuration of the units. This 100 square feet of porch out there is a piece of the outside that gives the occupants of covered patios, and really very livability is really important in in these units. And then so we also have a property of the same, basically the same size in Apache Junction. Now, Apache Junction's in the eastern valley of Phoenix. Uh, the fastest growing city in the Phoenix Metroplex is Queen Creek. And all of these growths, like this is where a major size battery factory is being constructed. The population increase and income growth in the eastern valley of the Phoenix Metroplex is pretty impressive, and it's provided us with core investable projects on infill property that create stable um, income. Now we're spring loaded. We're ready to pull permits on this project. Again, development company, uh, Cielo Apartments LLC. Um, we we follow our data-driven processes. We identify and acquire, and we work in B plus, B minus, and C neighborhoods, C plus neighborhoods. Uh, the uh, the floor plans, every floor plan has two baths in it. We actually have a three-bedroom configuration as well. The analytics for the city that we follow are pretty common. I mean, most of you probably know it, but the number one issue in the city is population growth, and we have the formula here that pretty common, but certainly worth following. For the cities, what we're looking for is population growth, median household income growth, median household or condo price growth, a controlled crime index, and job growth. For the neighborhoods, we look for median household income in the range that that's referred to as the sweet spot. Uh, Contract rent kind of low, but median contract rent is pretty good. We also pay attention to the unemployment rate, the poverty level, and the breakup of the ethnicity in the area. So,
Well, those incomes are not what we see in San Diego, but they
right,
can, for that
right,
income, they can afford the median rent. Is that right?
right. That's the idea. Um, the same configuration, only with a lesser exterior to them, without having the covered patio over the entries. Uh, these are our workforce rentals um, that we think will that we've built and had no trouble stabilizing within 3 months. We did 18 units in South Phoenix and had it rented up in 3 months. Um, so what we're looking for all the time, and I want to point this out, what we're looking for is the first thing we're looking for is what's the proposed project going to provide in terms of income to the investors and the developer. The second thing is what's their risk tolerance uh, what would you think the risk tolerance should be, and that of course is regulates our cap rate analysis. And then finally, we want to know if we can do some good in the community at the same time, uh, building and moving uh, a group, deploying a group of qualified investors into an area that also improves the neighborhood. Um, so our ownership model is build to rent. I'm a I am a I, I've built in San Marcos. I've delivered about 1,000 houses in San Marcos, and in Oceanside about 1,300. And during that whole time, the terminology for what we were doing because we were building FHA, VA, high production housing. Uh, we were called merchant builders, and the old time companies like uh, Coffin and Broad, which is now KB, and those are all merchant building companies. Of course, those were the companies that we measured our success against. But the nowadays the term is BTRs, build to rent. Cielo Apartments LLC, its developers are trying to find other locations to do the same thing. So uh, the Cielo Apartments project is 30 units. It's being built by the same guy that's building the 34 units in Glendale. Um, gives you some idea of the layout. This is, I think the property is 1.7 acres, something like that. So we can get about 30 units. They're all two bedrooms. They've got dog parks. They've got uh, a little spot for um, barbecue and it's and the beauty of Phoenix is that all of these improvements are already in the Broadway Avenue and Delaware Drive are full arterial improvements, and it's fabulous to not have to bear the cost of installing all of that.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah,
I just wanted to ask a question. It's the
yeah.
1.7 acres. Are there setbacks? Because it looks like it's almost at the edge of the property.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, there's plenty. The setbacks are, I mean, unfortunately, the scale is a little bit distorted here, but this it has, we comply with all those setback requirements, and again, we don't build garages. These are uh, we have one covered parking space and one uncovered parking space for each unit.
Mhm.
But you can see the backyards around the that's a Circle K store right there on the corner.
Okay, the setbacks are the green little green trees there.
Right, those are all in the setbacks, right, right. And so this is just basically a generalized story of what the whole Phoenix area is like. Cielo Apartments is timely and ready to hit the market at exactly the right time. There are in the highway out there on 330, there are developers going out there and building 1 million square foot buildings spec. In other words, they don't have a tenant and they've built them. It's, what is that? 27 acres of building. So there's the market size, I think, is going to be going to one of the things that happens in Phoenix every time is the upper end always gets soft, and when it gets soft, they begin to have to drop the rents down from $4,200 a month down to $3,800 a month down to $3,500 a month. But we're $1,650 a month, so we're at the bottom of the market. This will give you some idea of what the rents are. 30 units, $2.14 to $2.19 a foot, 25,000 square feet of building. The annual gross rent's about $717,000. Um, our analysis shows that the cap rate should be at about 5. The levered equity multiple is about 3.43. The levered internal rate of return is about 14.5, and the 10-year average levered cash on cash is about 4.97%.
And
Um,
so Ron, can you explain some of those terms for the
well,
for the people who work in single families? It's a little bit a
yeah,
lot.
I was going to go into this next slide
Okay.
just to kind of show you. This is the it's it's always important to provide the one caveat, which is that in this business you have to count the numbers every day, and for the most part, the numbers in some way or another change every day. New information, new details, uh, unexpected things. So this is a way. This is our method of keeping track of everything that's going on in the project at all times. And if you put this development yield spread in red, just to kind of highlight it a little bit, simply stated, I if you go out into the marketplace and you buy a 30 unit apartment house that was built in 1975, what you're doing is you're buying that apartment house not for the cost of the apartment house, but you're buying it based on what its income is, what its net operating income is. And the interesting thing about doing ground up construction is that you have the opportunity to achieve what some people call I've heard the term that it's the pop in the development, and that is that you build the building for uh, the the cost, and when you're done, the income that that building produces uh, actually yields a what they call a development spread, or you can visualize it as a as a profitability on cost of about, and you want that number to be somewhere between 5 and 7%. Um, it's it's interesting because the more stable, the better that number is, the more stabilized your income is going to be in the property. And I have uh, uh, quantitative analysts who can explain how that works. But the key to this is that all the numbers are in one spot, and you have a pretty good idea. If you follow me, I'm sorry this is probably a little bit small on your screen, but I hope you I hope you can see it. Besides the acquisition on the left side, the financing is what makes the project work. And in this particular case, and on the right side of the sheet where it says sources and uses, many people call that sources and applications of funds. That gives you an idea. This our uh, analytics can produce what the equity amount is that's needed for the project, and gives us a good look at the total cost. And from that, the metrics produce uh, a pretty good statement of what the internal rate of return is. And the equity multiple means simply that they uh, produce, if you put $2 million in, you're going to get 1.23 times that money back. That's cash in addition to the tax benefits of owning the project. Um, I put this in the slide presentation. I thought these slide presentations were distributed, so I would just show what a 5 year hold would look like, and
Okay. Well,
what
before
the
you do the 5 year hold on the slide previous, so just so people know kind of the basic numbers or the ratio between the equity is really what you raise from investors, and then the debt is a large loan that you go and acquire, right? That's like where it says sources
well,
of
right,
money.
right. The equity is what the investor puts in the project,
So
the
two
investor
million.
and the developer, because the developer has money in the deal too.
Mhm.
In this particular case, he's got 650,000, I believe, in the project. So of the 2,178,000, he's got 650,000 in the deal. And the construction financing, I've got it in there right now at 75.3%. We just recorded a construction loan for 6.9 million on the other project, on the project that I showed you the pictures of, and that's only 64% of the loan to cost value, because uh, we had to put a lot more money and a lot more cash into the project as a result of the lender. Then after you get done with the project and get it stabilized, of course, we want to get the permanent financing in place, and I've got the permanent financing at a loan to value of 70%. Um, uh, I just think it's going to be all of these numbers will change. I did this set of analytics just to kind of demonstrate the level of focus and the details that are involved.
Yeah. So just for people who maybe do single families, it's basically there's a construction loan, which is set probably 2 years to get it built. You rent
Mhm.
them out, and then and then that middle portion there is you refinance into permanent, 10,
Right.
20, or 30-year loans. And that's when you hold it as the rental. That's the refinance. Kind of
Right.
like if you got a hard money loan to flip a house, guys, and then you decided if you didn't sell it, you kept it as a rental, and then you go get a longer term loan with a lower interest rate because there's less risk for the bank at that point. So the construction loan's a little bit harder to get, but Ron's an expert at that. And then you refinance into more stable financing once it's rented up.
Yeah, somehow or another, it feels like the construction loan we recorded in January on the Glendale project. It seems like that was the only construction loan I heard of in the country for crying out loud. They were very difficult to put together without putting loads of cash into the deal, which we ended up doing. The total cost on the project was close to 12 million, and we could only borrow 6.9, so. The rest of it was cash. Um, so I just wanted to finish, Janice, by saying that uh, I wasn't sure what the population would be on tonight, but all of the people that are looking for advice, if their answer at the beginning was yes, they're interested in looking at it, um, and if they can contact you regarding the next steps for the Cielo project, I want you to know that our current construction loan candidate would find it very comforting that there was interest in adding in bringing capital into the deal. What else can I give you?
That's your office there in San Marcos, and you actually work in the same building as Richard and Richard Construction because they do some construction for you here, and they also build some things in Phoenix for you, right?
They're actually building the project. We're under construction there, and we have costs from them on Cielo.
Mhm.
I've been working with them since 2015, so I've got a good history with them. Um,
So I think if you guys have questions, Ron's open here to answer any questions you have. And then later, if you do want to find out more about this or you want to be a passive investor, either with your IRA or your savings and things like that, we'd have to get to know each other more. I don't know how many people are accredited or non-accredited in the audience, but you can always set up a call with me to discuss that. And it's under talkwithjanice.com. And I think Richard will post another one, another link, because some people came in and out during the conference. So if you can put that Talk with Janice link also below, Richard, and then you guys can either come off mute, like you could raise your hand. You see in the Zoom, you can either raise a hand or just, if you can't find that, just come off mute and ask Ron a question. Or you can type it in the chat and I will read them out. I mean, the you know, construction is an area that most people don't learn about in some of their real estate meetings they go to because we're often renovating and buying things that are already built. So Ron's here to answer your questions and figure out, how do you get these things financed? How do you get them built? He's got years of experience doing this. So I mean, you
we
said some projects were tough, Ron, and I guess that's what made your hair go gray, right? Was those
well
projects that
we
were difficult.
we affectionately refer to the apartments that we see people buying that were built in 1964 as used housing. Um,
Used housing. Yes, you like
yeah,
new housing. They like used
right,
housing.
right. We like the smell of new wood.
Yes, the smell of old housing is tough. My I'm renovating up in Sacramento and we were putting in a new water line all the way to the meter, my guy today called me and said, "Oh, by the way, we just noticed that the sewer line is also too old and we're putting that in new as well." So that happens when you have old properties, right?
Well, I just featured these two projects just to kind of give you an example of them, but we actually have $239 million worth of projects in the pipeline right now at some level, uh, all under some form of contract, but some of them ready to finance and others still in preparation. Um,
Right.
my 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 hope is that I can spend the time that I have left in this industry, that I can spend it passing on the work to other people. So that's what New Green Development Advisors is about. We
Right.
serve as a group of expert advisors for people that want to grow in the business from a almost universally, almost every one of the programs out there like multifamily mindset and Grant Cardone and all of those guys, they all are talking about acquisitions. Nobody promotes the idea of ground up construction, and we think it's easy to. It's just as the old places. You may close escrow and have income the next month, but you've still got to face that long haul toward renovation and uh, forcing the rents.
Yeah.
So
And tenants,
I'm
We have
toilets,
a
and
couple
trash, right?
questions in the chat.
sure.
So we have a few questions coming in. I'll read them out to you. So one
Okay.
person asked, is this applicable to Canada? Can Canadian builders get construction loans? I'm assuming yes. And then what are the next investment projects? That's from Ani. And that was the first question that came in.
Canada has some very interesting banking rules that the we had partners from Canada, one from Montreal. I had a partnership for 11 years with a company from Montreal, and they actually can finance construction in the United States. And what they do is they ship the proceeds to the Netherlands Antilles, and by treaty repatriate it back into Canada without tax. So there's some real advantages with Canada. Canada, I think, only has five banks nationally, and those
Uh,
five banks are governed by a set of rules that are quite a bit different than ours.
Would you be able to accept monies from out of the country
I have.
assets?
Oh yes,
Okay.
yeah,
I think that was the basis of the question.
yeah. And what was the second one? Anna
Um,
in the chat. Anna wrote something.
the second one was, what's the next? I think it says, what's the next investment projects? Well, the next one is the Celio one, but like Ron said, he has always has projects in the works. This guy has more projects than anyone I've met. So,
You
um,
know, you know,
Joseph asks, says finding money is the most challenging part of construction. Yes. He's a general contractor and he's been doing residential remodeling. What would be the stepping stone to get into ground up?
well, you you just it,
Find the dirt.
you have to be willing to plan all the way out to the house being there and then work yourself back and figure out what the numbers are to make a proposal to the capital that is both attractive and the investor can get caught up in the plan and the vision for the property. I mean, I think it's I've been doing this a long time, obviously, but I still get a kick out of turning land into cash. I mean, it's amazing.
Well,
As an
and to
example,
answer that, like
how did
we know someone in our group who owns like a lot that you could put 3 or 4 houses on, and that's kind of what you need to find if you want to go from what you've been doing with renovation into building. And then you got to go through the city, get the approval, get the plans approved. So there's some steps to do it. It's just, I think, more profitable than remodeling, right?
Well, it's what's really true is the one rule in this business is nothing happens until you make it happen. Things don't just fall into place. You have to convince a lot of, you have to kiss a lot of frogs, you have to convince a lot of people that what you have in mind is worth doing. And ultimately it always is, and it's persistence that makes it happen. I'm uh, excuse me for being a cheerleader, but that's how it is.
Well, you wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't successful, right? And then a
Yeah.
few people, including Glendy, mentioned remodeling houses, and I'm in the same boat, taking out tons of trash from hoarders and renters. I think she said 22 tons of trash. We had 4 40-yard dumpsters to take away. And so, yeah, it's much nicer to have that clean new wood smell than it is for the old rotten wood.
Well, you see, I have this. I again, I try to bring things down to their smallest uh, way of looking at it. And the one of the conclusions I came was that vacant piece of property that you see that you drive by every day on the way to wherever you're going, the owner of that piece of property hates it. He's he pays taxes on it. He has to keep it mowed. People dump trash on it. People move on it and start squatting on it. I mean, vacant property, in my view, is a great opportunity, and you can start at any size you want. Of 7,000 square foot lots of really nice uh, uh, place to put a single family house with an ADU on it or not. And a 2 acre parcel is a great place to put 34 uh, doors of duplexes on the property. So, you can start at any level you want. Uh, my suggestion is, the reason why I started the single and multifamily mastermind group called American Developers Guild was to be able to convince people that ground up was not the scary tract over the landscape that people think it is. It's just a different way of looking at the problem. I think it you know we all have our druthers, but I'd rather build new houses than clean up a mess.
I'd say the worst thing, the surprise is when you open the wall and find things you didn't know about, or you lift up, the floor or the carpet and you go, oh no, I didn't know that was there.
Yeah.
Um, subfloors,
It's not
concrete. I
it's
mean,
not
my
that you
first flip was a cracked slab, so I
yeah,
just dove right in, right?
yeah. It's not that you won't have problems. It's just they're different
There are
problems.
different problems and they smell better.
Yep, always smell better.
Yeah. I mean, we do have a few developers in the audience. If anybody wants to talk about how they made that transition, I know a few of you who you are, that transition from working on single family remodels to going into the building. So if anybody has any comments on what got you over that big leap when you did that. So we have another question from Joseph. What's a healthy profit margin for ground up construction to ensure a reasonable return? That's something that you started talking about. Yeah. And at what point does the margin become risky due to overhead and carrying costs. I think that's what people worry about, right, Ron? So go ahead.
Well, there's kind of a rule of thumb. If what you're building is single family, 1,250 square foot, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath, uh, uh, FHA financed or VA financed or whatever, conventionally financed property, and you're building several at a time, I mean, we all want to work somewhere in the 12 to 14% net pre-tax distributable uh, income. We want to be able to be in that range from a feasibility standpoint. If you're building it to the minimum, I think if you're building a project for rent, is I think you want to have a, uh, a at least I mean at least your equity multiple has to be at least over 1.5. uh you know and and the biggest challenge I have with everybody is simply bringing people to the understanding that it does matter what things cost. And I love the question that Elon Musk asked, which was he found out that NASA was buying engines made with titanium, and he asked the question, "Why are you using titanium in these engines?" And nobody had an answer for it. Uh, the I I can tell you that we learned how to use a framing machine, so we could, instead of uh, trucking pre-built walls, which were basically trucks full of air. Instead of doing that, we learned how to use a framing machine so we could reduce the cost of and do the work on site. It's
So it's
just,
learning how to control your costs, right
yeah,
then.
yeah, it is the most important.
It's why restaurants have the soda machines. They buy the syrup, they put the bubbles in the water, and it comes out instead of buying cans and bottles, right?
Yeah.
What's cheaper to transport? And
Mhm.
you maybe you could touch on that dirt thing you talk about. And one of the most expensive things is
Export.
exporting dirt. But you like Phoenix because of these flat lots, right? I mean, San Diego has a lot of hills and stuff.
Actually, Phoenix is more wonderful than that. It's not only flat, but you don't have to do anything to it. The soil is in great shape, and it's been a good experience so far.
So it's basically compact and you just
Yeah,
can start right on it.
yeah.
Good. Yeah, I see the developments around here and they spend months with the big rigs like moving dirt all around in these different hillsides.
Well, the biggest challenge around here is rock, but and you don't have that challenge in Phoenix either because
Mm.
it's all a gigantic desert.
Yeah, so I guess one of the questions about the profit margin is maybe where to be, obviously you have a fudge factor, but where could it go wrong? Is it the loan cost too much, or is it the construction costing too much, or all of the above?
Well, it's actually, it's always been my experience that it's time that costs too much.
Mm.
And uh, you know, uh, there's a distinction between how general contractors do business. They estimate, but developers have to learn how to purchase. Now, making that distinction is not a small leap. How much? People always say, "Well, how much per square foot can you do this for?" Right? Well, then you can act on that information, or you can determine how much per square foot, and that's the difference. I believe that the development process includes purchasing, not estimating. Uh,
Right, because you're
yeah,
purchasing so much in bulk that you have to know how much each item. It's
right.
just like making any budget. It's got to be more itemized the more itemized it is, the safer you are, I believe.
Well, every general contractor, if you're hiring a general contractor, every general contractor will mark up the subcontractor's bid because he's got some risk in that, you know? And so he'll mark up the subcontractor's bid. So you you have to you have to work hard on that piece. It's how much it costs that counts. That's the biggest number.
Yeah, because they're like you said, they're averaging it or estimating per square foot without
Right.
looking at the cost of every single material. And of course, they will come into the owner and say, "Oh, we need to do a change. The materials cost more. Here's your bill," you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yours is all laid out, and the fact the fact that you got through that project in Carlsbad during COVID when materials were in short supply, which extends the time, and then material costs went up because they weren't available.
They were 30%,
Yeah.
35%. It was amazing. If I could maybe share one more experience with everybody. Uh, During the days of high production housing, when we could start 60, 70, 80 units at a time, we had a lot more control over costs than we do now. Because we don't have large enough starts. You know, if the bank lets you start 15 units, if you're building single family houses, if the bank lets you start 15 units, you're doing pretty good, you know.
Mhm.
So uh, I don't know if it'll ever get back to the volume construction we've done in the past, but
The larger scale. Well, that's sometimes when a builder would, if the market goes down, they would just be like, "Oh, I can't finish this development," right? So some of them are built and some aren't, right?
yeah, yeah.
Or the model homes are there, but they're not. So we have a question from Alex Lisnitsky. If Phoenix is easy, wouldn't it attract all the builders to the area? Well, some people don't want to go. I mean, Ron flies out there every month.
It
Some people don't
attracted
want to do
us.
that. And then wouldn't it flood the market? There's an awful lot of land in Phoenix. I'm kind of answering the question, but I do know that there's so many um, large companies moving their factories to Phoenix that the job growth is pretty incredible. And then how do you find reliable contractors outside of your core geographic area? Like if you didn't have Richard or Richard Construction also having a branch out there, how would you find them in a new area, Ron?
Well, just because we used Richard doesn't, we did bid it with general contractors locally.
Okay.
So we didn't, what, they weren't favored. Um, and the answer is the reason why we went to Phoenix was because that's where the market is. You know, the best market in this country right now, I think it's Nashville, but Phoenix is number two for ground up development, I think. And I and and so we went to Phoenix, and you know, the local people are competition. There's no question about it. But there's a kind of a feeling in this business, which is that if you can successfully build houses in California, you can build them anywhere.
Yeah, because you've gone through so much to be able to
Yeah,
do it in California.
yeah.
With the regulations, there's just a lot fewer regulations in other states.
Well, it's the levels of inspection are different. Everything about it's different.
Yeah. I mean, one of the projects I was doing up in near the Bay Area in Contra Costa County, it seemed like when we would present to the city that everybody on the approval board was a retired architect and they all had their little comments that they wanted to do. So that made it tough.
Mhm. In California, the biggest problem in California is that the staff in each one of these cities, they're on their way through to another job somewhere else. And they're trying to make their reputations because, you know, Carlsbad just happens to be one of those wind tunnels that in that.
So they want to go to a bigger city. That's their
Yeah,
move up job.
right, either a bigger city or one that pays better,
Okay. So Carlos is asking, do you take the land tax implications after project completion while planning costs? I'm not
Yes,
sure, Carlos, what you mean by the land tax.
I know what he means.
Okay, cool.
He's asking about the supplemental tax. When you're building the building, you're being taxed. There's no building on the building, and then after it's done, they reassess it,
Yeah.
and you have to pay the difference.
But you know how to estimate that because you know what they
yes,
value it at.
there's formulas for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be taxed on the dirt until it's completed, and then it's a big reassessment, right?
Right. It always comes at the wrong time.
Yeah, and that's why Ron's an expert with the numbers. He loves his Excel charts, All right, guys, any more questions? We have it's 7:45, so if anybody has another question, put it in the chat. I mean, we're here for you. Here you got this expert, and you can ask questions about construction, building, codes, permits, how to calculate, how to find that building loan that you're looking for.
See, what people do as developers is they create a game. And the game is the house isn't there. And what I have to do is I have to figure out how to make that house there. And the rules of the game are by agreement. They did this, so I'm going to do that. The city makes me do this, so I'll try to figure out how to do that. And over time, the reason why there's profitability in the business, the reason why is because as long as you don't do something stupid, like borrow a construction loan and go buy a Ferrari with it, if you use the money on the project for its intended purposes, the game gets more interesting as you go along. You get more satisfaction out of playing the game. You begin to be more in control of not only how the rules are interpreted, but you also begin to bend it towards your point of view. And I'll just give you a really quick story. I started 274 houses, and I wanted to figure out how to sell out it was a 900 unit project, 932. And I wanted to sell it out. I wanted to sell one phase out. And I put it on the market, and I organized the marketing plan around the idea of selling all 274 houses in one day. And it was crazy how we did it. We had people lined up for a week around the corner in their campers. And I did it with price and with notice, and we got it all set up, and I got them all done. And I called my joint venture partner in Canada, and I told him, I said, man, we sold them out in one day. And you know what he said to me? He said, you sold them too cheap.
Oh my gosh. That was not a pat on the back, was it?
No, that was not a pat on the back. But the game was wonderful. And I want you to know that my margin on those houses was 26%. And he was right. I sold them too cheap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got them sold, so you got rid of the headache.
Well, I mean, what my point of that story is that we're the constructors of the game that we're playing. This is Monopoly with real people living in the hotels.
Yeah.
And we have a good time with it. Probably more than anything else I enjoy is waking everybody up that's watching this and that comes to the meetings that I have and that works with me, is waking them up to the fact that this is a game to be played with relish. It's not full of treachery. It's just, you just have to pay attention, and you have to play the game as if everything depends on it, because it does.
Because it does, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was
speaking
wondering
of
if you
that,
could
we have a
touch
question,
on-
probably the last question we'll
Okay.
take from Nancy.
Wait,
And
somebody was just going to ask something.
Yeah. I,
Oh,
I
go
was going to
ahead.
say, I was going to say that to get into the game, I'm out here. I have minimal bank account, but I have a 401k sitting in my uh, investment firm. How do I get, how can I use leverage that to invest with, and how long is the return on my investment? If you could touch on,
How long
mm,
is the return, or what could
right,
you hope for?
how how long will it take for the return? And how do I go about using a 401k? If you could touch on those, it might be helpful.
Janice can answer the 401k thing.
Okay.
We can developers that are involved with this can shine the light on the path of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense from a project standpoint. But the financial standpoint, I think Janice probably has the
Yeah,
best.
I'll touch on that, and then you can say how long it takes based on, what state you're in, Phoenix versus, California. If you have a 401k, there's two ways to use that money. You can borrow against it as a loan from your current job and be paying that back in pretty much out of your paycheck. And you're allowed to borrow up to 50% of what's in there, or um, 50,000 is usually the limit. Now, if you have other jobs, in other words, if you have old 401ks from other jobs, you're allowed to roll those into a self-directed IRA account with many custodials around the country. We like UDirect IRA Services up in Orange County. That's Karen Hall's company. But there's, somewhere between 25, there's more, to 35 of these companies around the country. Why haven't you heard about them? Because the people who run Wall Street and have stock accounts like Fidelity and Schwab, they can't do that. They can't collect fees along the way. So they don't talk about that. But it is a regular thing, and it's pretty much how people fund almost any business, a hair salon, a nail salon, a tattoo shop. Their friends invest with them, and often from an IRA. So it's really just taking the 401k that was controlled by your old employer and just moving it to another custodian. And there's no tax implications. And then you can invest directly in real estate, either through an LLC or a note and deed of trust. And then, Ron, you're going to talk about how long it takes to get a return. So I like to, he's going to give you a concrete answer. I like to get people to think about, does the property throw off any income? So as a rental, it throws off income. So if there's a renter in there, you could get a return right away. If you're flipping a house, there's really the property doesn't make any money until you finish the remodel. And Ron can talk about how long it takes when you're building.
Right. If you acquired a piece of property that has zoning that by right you can build what you want to build. In other words, if it's zoned for this and that's what you want to build, if you want to do that, it'll take you somewhere between 6 to 11 months to get it to the point where you can permit the development plan that you have for the project. After you get that, it'll take you, after you get that approval and those permits, then you can dovetail the financing into that. That'll take another 2 or 3 months. So I generally think that it takes the front end of a project, give yourself 12 months. The construction of the project, give yourself 12 months. So in 24 months, you've got an income producing property at that point. And the income producing property, you pay the construction loan off with the permanent financing you put on the property, and hopefully you have some cash proceeds out of that financing because you borrowed 70% of the cost and you're going to borrow on the permanent financing 75% of the value. So you create some tax-free cash. So that's where you hopefully, the times are right and the interest rates are right and the lenders are all looking for loans. You can do really cash out loans that at least recover your capital.
Right.
And
It
then
just hit me because you're borrowing on the costs, but
you
you're borrowing the refinance, you're borrowing on the
on the
value, which has now
value.
increased greatly, right?
Right. And remember, the money that you're putting into the property is round figures 25 to 30% of cost. Okay. So if a project costs $10 million to build, you're going to put $2.5 million into that project. But when you build the project for two and a half, when you build the project for $10 million, when it's permanent financing is ready and the building is stabilized, you then have the ability to borrow on a valuation of maybe 14 million or 15 million. And you borrow 70 to 75% of that, which pays the construction loan off and returns some of your capital there. Now it it changes through the S curve of the economy. There are some times when it really works perfectly and you think you're a genius because you did it. And the other, I mean, sometimes we think we have the Midas touch because we hit the market right between the eyes. That happens. But for the most part, that's why it's worthwhile doing it. Is his money in the 401k? Does that money have to be repatriated back into the 401k? It does not.
I mean,
Okay.
if you're borrowing it, obviously it's if
Right.
you're with your current employer, it's you're borrowing it. I've had people borrow from HELOCs or borrow from the 401k, put the money in and then pay it back later. If you're once you've moved your money, it's called a rollover into an IRA. It stays in the IRA until for the rest of your life till you retire.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a couple one other question before we got Jason in there is as
From
someone who's
Nancy.
new to real estate development, how can I tell if a contractor's quote for building a duplex is reasonable? And this is, for doing a small project, obviously. And if I plan to sell it once it's finished, what percentage of return should I aim for?
Well, I'm a contractor and a developer, and I get four bids on every project. I mean, I that's how I tell if it's
Yeah.
reasonable. Because
Yeah,
there's somebody who
compare
wants the
bids.
job. There's somebody who wants the job more than the other guy.
Yeah. You compare the bids and you look at them.
And you call around and you talk to people, and it's always the question, how much.
Well, the other question was that Nancy asked was, what return should I be aiming for?
Well, return, of course, as much as you can get, but you know, uh, I think you have to be looking for in an internal rate of return of somewhere above 14% is pretty attractive.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what you want to aim for. And sometimes you go higher. And of
Sometimes
course,
you get sometimes, and then then you think you did really good.
yeah,
It's like when you buy a car, if the car runs real well, you were really smart. The deal you made was fabulous, right? If it doesn't run well, the salesman sold you a lemon, right?
right. Or it's the
Yeah,
designer and engineer's fault
right, right.
at the manufacturing. So another question is, um, if now it this question is to invest in one of these projects, how much do I need to be a developer? I think also what AJ is asking is how much do I need to be a passive investor in the project? And usually when we do these, we set up an account where your minimum is 25 to 50K as the minimum to come into the project.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps, AJ. But you can type in something else if you had another question. It really depends. Um, and I'll define this for you guys. If you're not an accredited investor, and this is why I do that, what's your net worth project, is if you make over 200,000 as a single person 2 years in a row, you are accredited. If you don't, you're not accredited. If you're married, you have to make 300,000 as a couple 2 years in a row, or your net worth is over $1 million, not counting, and this is really important for California and New York people, not counting the equity in your personal residence. So if you have retirement accounts, savings accounts, equity in other properties, equity in cars, I mean, it doesn't matter where it comes from. But if you're worth over $1 million and you could liquidate that and it's over $1 million, and in fact, they might change that pretty soon because $1 million's starting to be not as much as it used to be. But that's what the law is on the books right now. Then you're accredited. So to go back to the question is when 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 we put money in as a non-accredited investor, that's why we keep the minimum at 25K. But in the larger projects, we need more accredited investors because they usually put in more because it's a smaller percentage of their overall net worth. So you'll see some projects say minimum 25, usually when they only have to raise like a million or $1.5 million. Once you get up to the 2 million range, we're really looking for accredited investors who can put in 50 to 75 to 100K each person. So that's kind of the numbers you're looking at. If you're not accredited and you want to invest in one of these projects, we have to get to know each other because it's basically a friends and family. We have to meet, talk on the phone, do all that stuff. If you're non accredited, they allow you to just put money in because they think the government thinks, well, you know what you're doing. Or you can set up a call with me and we could start the process to just figure out what you're interested in. All right, guys. Well, it's 8:10. I want to thank Ron for being here as a speaker, and I've been looking forward to hear his presentation for a while. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. Look on Meetup for any future events that you want to join. Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm very grateful.
Good night, everybody.